How are you feeling tonight? I hope you re comfortable and at peace. Maybe you re already lying down with your blanket pulled gently around your shoulders, or perhaps you re just beginning to settle in wherever you are. This evening, take a deep breath and let the quiet warmth of the past surround you. Tonight we journey into the world of sleep. Not as we know it today with memory foam pillows or electric nightlights, but as it was long ago in shadowy chambers beneath wooden beams and flickering candlelight. This is the story of how humans have sought comfort, rest, and dreams from the dawn of time to the edge of modernity. Imagine with me a room made of stone walls, thick to keep the wind out, and heavy oak beams overhead. A small fire burns low in the hearth, casting long golden light across the floor. The bed in the center is not quite what we know today. It is a frame of wood, perhaps intricately carved, perhaps simple, depending on one's station in life, but most likely raised off the ground to keep away the cold and the creatures of the floor. In ancient Egypt, beds were symbols of status and practicality. Pharaohs slept on elevated wooden frames, often inlaid with gold or ivory, while common folk used simpler platforms, sometimes made of palm sticks. Lashed together, for most people, the concept of a mattress was still centuries away. Instead, a woven mat or layer of straw offered just enough softness to lull one into slumber. And yet they slept beneath stars in small courtyards, or by the Nile's gentle flow. They dreamed of gods and journeys of ancestors and futures, guided by myth and the quiet rhythm of the earth. Move forward in time to ancient Greece, where philosophers and poets also pondered the night here. Beds began to take form more recognizably. They were often low to the ground, constructed with wooden slats and covered with woolen blankets or linens. For those who could afford them, in the homes of Athens and Sparta, sleep was valued both for its rest and its mystery, a time when the gods whispered and dreams might carry messages from beyond. The Romans, too, were deeply concerned with sleep and the place of rest. The lectus was more than just a bed. It was a place for reclining, for dining, for reflection. Their wealthier citizens owned luxurious couches, fitted with stuffed cushions and draped with soft textiles. But even the humbler Romans knew the joy of ending a day with quiet repose. Throughout all these times, sleep was never just unconsciousness. It was a sacred space, a transition between days and even worlds. It was where people gathered with their own thoughts, or with a spouse, a child, or a pet by their side, wrapped in furs or wool, listening to the wind move through the night. Medieval Europe brought beds that we might better recognize, large wooden frames, sometimes with curtains drawn around them to hold in warmth and keep out drafts. Mattresses were often filled with straw or feathers and were fluffed and turned. Regularly by hand, a servant might light the fire and warm the blankets before the lord or lady climbed beneath them. And blankets, those humble, simple items, they have their own history. Wool was the most common material used for centuries, prized for its warmth and durability in colder regions. Furs were layered atop the bed, while in wealthier homes, richly dyed and embroidered fabrics were added more than just functional. They were symbols of care, comfort, and sometimes of love. Families often slept together, not only for warmth, but because rooms were scarce and homes were small in peasant cottages. A mother, father, and children might share a single bed lined up, like spoons, their breaths rising and falling in the dim quiet. In castles, the story was similar, though spread over more space. Nobles would have grand canopy beds with drapes, heavy and thick, to preserve heat in those stone-walled rooms. Sometimes servants slept on the floor nearby, ready to answer any call. Sleep was communal, shaped by necessity and tradition. The idea of a private bedroom just for sleep, that is a modern invention in many ways. So, tonight, as you lie in your own bed, with your own pillow in a room just for you, remember the long line of sleepers that came before you. They too had worries and stories. They too pulled the covers up around their chin and listened to the night, waiting for dreams to come. As the fire dims and shadows stretch along the walls, let us sink deeper into the softness of sleep and trace the quiet journey of pillows, those small, silent companions that cradle our thoughts and hold our dreams gently through the dark hours. The earliest pillows were not the soft cotton cushions we know today, but carved supports made from woodstone or even porcelain. In ancient Mesopotamia, where civilization first bloomed, people rested their heads on solid curved blocks designed to lift the head and protect elaborate hairstyles from ruin, though not comfortable by modern standards. These were precious objects, shaped with care and kept with pride. In ancient China too, the pillow was often crafted from jade or ceramic, believed to influence health and the soul. Some believed that sleeping on certain materials could affect the flow of energy within the body, guiding dreams and warding off evil spirits. Sleep was not just rest, but alignment, a chance to bring balance to the self. Across the Nile in Egypt, headrests made of ivory or polished wood served a similar purpose, their curve designed to hold the neck gently above the mat. And while they seem austere to us now, they were tokens of wealth and ritual, often buried with the dead to ensure rest in the afterlife. Time moved forward, and so did softness in the Roman Empire. Textiles flourished, and the wealthy began to stuff their cushions with feathers or straw covered in fine linen or wool to form something closer to our familiar pillow. Though still a luxury for the few, these early padded rests hinted at the comfort to come. By the time we reach medieval Europe, pillows had become more widespread, though often divided by class. Noble families kept embroidered cushions filled with down tucked beneath their heads in grand wooden beds, while the poor might roll a bundle of cloth or rest directly upon their arm or cloak. Sleep remained sacred, but comfort varied by fortune. In Japan, the Makura pillow evolved into a thoughtful balance between practicality and beauty, often filled with buckwheat, husks, or rice chaff, and encased in smooth fabric. Some were placed atop lacquered wooden stands and tied gently in place, cradling the head just enough for stillness and dreams. The room around would be hushed and spare, a tatami mat, a paper screen, the distant rustle of wind or rain like a lullaby from the world itself. Even in colder climates like Scandinavia or the British Isles, pillows were slowly sewn into daily rest. Feather-filled and fluffed, they became not only tools for comfort, but treasured items, passed down or made with care by hand. A mother sewing for her children, a wife preparing a home for warmth against the long, dark winters. Dreams, too, played a central role in the night's passage. In many cultures, dreams were more than illusions. They were messages from ancestors' visions, from gods, or glimpses into the soul. In ancient Greece, temples, called Asclepians, welcomed the sick who would sleep there in hopes of dreaming. Their cure, divine sleep as treatment, wrapped in sacred silence. As centuries passed, so did our idea of where and how to sleep in monasteries. Across Europe, monks laid their heads in stone, cells rising before dawn to chant and pray, while in village homes, pillows were often shared between siblings or a married couple, heads close, whispers soft before sleep took them away. So as your head rests now upon your own pillow, shaped just the way you like it, Este, think of the dreams dreamt across time, across places that no longer stand, and lives no longer lived, yet still remembered in the hush between day and night. Let your breath settle and your thoughts drift as the quiet corners of the night gather around you, and the next chapter of this journey waits just ahead. The world changes after sunset. The edges soften, the air thickens with quiet, and for most of history, night was a presence unto itself, a time not just for rest, but for listening, for feeling, for being close to the pulse of the earth and the hush of sky. Before electric lights scattered the dark into artificial day, people lived in tune with the rhythm of dusk and dawn. Candles, lanterns, and hearth fires offered flickering islands of warmth in the wide ocean of night. Outside shadows moved, and trees whispered, winds crept through cracks, and every creak or sigh had meaning and weight. The hearth was the heart of the home. Its fire not only cooked food, but kept the night at bay in many homes. It never went out entirely. Coals were banked, and carefully tended embers glowed beneath ash-like sleepy eyes. Keeping watch, a family might gather around before bed, telling stories or offering prayers, letting the fire lull them slowly into quiet night. Sounds were different, then not muffled by insulation or drowned by hums of machines, but sharp and alive, the hoot of an owl, the call of a nightjar, the rustle of leaves, or a fox passing through the yard. Each sound told a story, sometimes of comfort, sometimes of caution. Dogs barked in the distance, and sometimes no sound at all, just the heavy stillness that wrapped itself around every wall and bed. People often feared the night, and yet loved it too. It was mysterious and sacred. Many believed that spirits walked them, that dreams were clearer and truths less guarded. A candle by the bedside might ward off bad dreams or guide the soul in case it wandered. The darkness was never empty. It was filled with meaning, both known and imagined. In rural villages across medieval Europe, townsfolk spoke of the witching hour, the deep part of night, when things unseen might stir. Shutters were bolted, doors, barred, herbs hung above thresholds. But within the bed, under layers of wool and straw, there was safety. Warmth, the soft breath of a child beside you, the rhythm of sleep returning again and again like waves. In desert lands, the night was a refuge from the day's heat. Families gathered outside in courtyards, where stars shone like cold lanterns strung across. The sky tales were told aloud over sweet tea, or bread songs were sung, and slowly people slipped away to sleep wrapped in cotton sheets beneath the open heavens. The darkness was a friend, not an enemy. It cooled the skin and soothed the mind. Even in grand cities like Rome or Constantinople, the night had its own language, the clatter of a watchman, Estaf, the echo of hooves down empty streets, the distant laughter from a tavern, or the quiet sob of someone unseen and alone. Windows glowed here and there with soft yellow light, then went dark one by one until the city slept. For centuries, people slept in two parts. A first sleep and a second. Between them was a quiet hour or two, where some would pray or write or simply sit with their thoughts. This forgotten rhythm, now rare, was once ordinary. The night divided like a chapter in a book, a pause to reflect before dreams returned. And always there was the blanket, the pillow, the shared breath, the flickering light of fire, and the deep deep stillness waiting to hold us night after night, generation after generation. Tonight, as you listen perhaps, you can hear something too, beyond your room, beyond the hum of now perhaps, just the memory of a distant night long ago, when someone like you pulled the covers close, closed their eyes, and drifted gently into sleep. As we drift further into the story of sleep, let us pause to consider what people wore when they surrendered to rest. Not just cloth, but comfort, the gentle wrapping of the self for a journey into dreams and silence, and the shape of night itself. In ancient times, sleepwear, as we know it, was rare. People wore what they had, sometimes a simple tunic, sometimes nothing at all. In warmer climates, like Egypt or Greece, the night required little extra: a linen, cloth, a light wrap, often the same garment used in daily life. Worn again for rest, the body was exposed to breezes, to moonlight, to the softness of darkness. But even then, choices mattered. A sleeping robe might be thinner, looser, dyed with calming hues, or left plain. An undyed sleep was an inward space, and even the humblest attire became a kind of ritual, marking the edge between waking and dreaming. As centuries passed and societies shifted, so too did what people wore to bed. In Roman households, the tunica served both for day and night. Though wealthier citizens might change into a softer version, spun of finer wool or cotton, something smoother for the skin, something meant only for sleep. It was not just about luxury, but intention to honor the night by preparing for it. In colder climates like those of Northern Europe, sleepwear took on new purpose: warmth. A long woolen shift or a thick undertunic was often worn to bed, layers piled gently against the skin to keep the cold from seeping in. In peasant homes, clothing was practical and often unchanged from day to night. Yet, in noble houses, the story changed. Silk nightshirts appeared, soft slippers for midnight walks to the chamber pot, long gowns embroidered at the hem with family symbols or sacred charms for protection against the spirits of the dark. The bedroom became a space of both privacy and display, and sleepwear reflected that tension between comfort and formality. During the Middle Ages, the night was both sacred and dangerous, and many people slept with a rosary near their bed or a charm tucked beneath their pillow. For women, a linen coif might cover the hair to keep it neat through the night, while men might wear caps to guard against drafts. The clothing of night was careful, chosen quiet armor against cold and superstition. By the time the Renaissance arrived, people began to see sleep as a time not only for rest, but refinement. Nightgowns, lengthened fabrics, softened. Wealthy merchants and scholars wore robes lined with fur or velvet. Their beds, high with pillows and folded quilts, and what they wore to bed became part of their identity, a sign of elegance even in slumber. In Japan, too, the traditions of sleepwear were precise and beautiful. Yukata robes, made of cotton, were used for sleeping and bathing in summer. Cool and loose, they swayed with every movement like breath garments, chosen not only for ease but for grace. The space around the sleeper became a serene world, shaped by care and stillness. In all these places and times, there was something deeply human in the act of undressing for sleep, removing the armor of the day, clothing the body in softness and simplicity, letting the outside world fall away like shoes left at the door. Today, we often think little of sleepwear: a t-shirt, a pair of shorts, a familiar hoodie. But behind even these lies a history, long and rich, a gesture of comfort passed through generations, a quiet message that says it is time to let go. So as you lie now beneath your blanket, feel the softness of what you wear, whatever it may be. Think of those who came before, who wrapped themselves in linen, in wool, in silk, who watched the fire fade and listened to the silence before sleep took them as it takes us all sooner or later, like a tide, like a song without end. Now that we are warm and still and deep into the hours of night, let us turn to the moments when sleep broke, when the hush was stirred and something in the darkness called us back for a while before dreams returned again. For most of history, the night was not one long uninterrupted slumber, but a rhythm in 2 acts, what we now call segmented sleep. The first sleep came early, soon after sunset, and lasted until midnight, or just beyond. Then came the waking hour, a quiet pause where many rose from their beds, not fully alert, but not entirely dreaming, either, a space between. In this hour, people prayed, tended fires, or sometimes wandered gently through the house. They might check on livestock, or whisper with a spouse, share stories in the dark, or look through small windows to see. If the moon still sailed the sky, it was not strange or troubling, but expected, a part of the body's natural rhythm, shaped by candlelight seasons and the steady pulse of night itself. Some believed this time was sacred, the best hour for contemplation, or even for receiving messages from beyond. Monks in monasteries rose for vigils, walking cold stone floors in silence, lighting tapers and chanting softly while the world slept around them. They moved through shadow-like thoughts, unspoken, lifting their voices into the stillness. In village homes, the same hour might be spent tending to a baby, warming milk, stoking the fire beneath the hearth, or speaking softly in the dark. Some couples used the time for closeness, a moment of tenderness, away from the work of the day and the weight of morning. And then, as naturally as it came, the second sleep would return, wrapping the household once again in its breathless hush. The moon, too, played its part, casting silver across rooftops and beds, gliding between clouds, a light not sharp like the sun, but soft and wondering. It changed the shape of things. It turned the yard into a mystery, and the face of a loved one into a dream. Sometimes a child might wake and see their room bathed in pale light and believe the moon itself had come to visit. Not all midnight visits were peaceful tales, a bound of dreams that crossed into waking fears that stirred in the heart, or imaginations that wandered too far. In the dark shadows on the wall might shift, strange creaks might echo, and stories whispered by firelight would suddenly feel close to close. These were the hours of superstition, when charms were clutched and prayers whispered to keep the unknown at bay. But often it was quiet, so deeply quiet that breath and heartbeat were the only sounds. The world held its breath, and the sleeper drifted slowly back into the arms of rest, wrapped in cloth, in silence, in the knowledge that morning would come, but not yet, not now. And so this broken sleep, this ancient rhythm, was not a flaw, but a pattern lost with the rise of the clock and the bright, unending light of modern life. It was once a gift, a gentle interlude, a reminder that night is not a single thing, but a world of layers where the soul may walk and rest, and wake and rest again. So tonight, if you stir, if you find yourself awake while the world is still sleeping, do not fear the hour. Let it come to you gently, like a visitor from the past. Let it sit beside you in the stillness and remind you that others have stirred in this hour too, across time and place, hearts beating slowly, minds drifting between here and somewhere else. You may hear nothing but the soft hum of your own breath, the tick of a distant clock, or perhaps the faint rhythm of rain on the window. And that is enough. That is the music of midnight, the lullaby that once cradled kings and farmers, children and scholars, all alike held in the vast quiet of the hours between. In old cottages where thatch rustled under wind and stone walls pressed back the cold, someone might have lit a candle just for a moment, not to see clearly, but to feel comforted by the golden flicker, the movement of flame that reminded them they were not alone in the dark. Even now, even then, the smallest light was a presence, a companion. In the great cities of the past, the second-floor window of a narrow house might have glowed briefly as someone scribbled thoughts in a journal or stared at the empty street. Below, no cars, no neon, just cobblestone and moonlight, and the knowledge that others, somewhere nearby, were also between sleeps, also holding still in the arms of silence. Sometimes people used this time to dream while still awake. They would lie back, eyes open, and imagine stories' lives elsewhere, futures unformed. They would listen to the distant bark of a dog or the faint hoot of an owl and feel oddly comforted, as if the world was not so large or so strange after all, just quiet, just turning slowly through the stars. Even now, in our age of glowing screens and ticking notifications, there are those who wake at this hour and pause, not to check or rush, but to listen and to remember something ancient, something soft, the breath of history in the folds of night, a shared inheritance from those who came before us, who also stirred beneath blankets and stared into the dark and smiled. So, if you find yourself awake sometime tonight, eyes open, heart calm, perhaps you are not truly alone. Perhaps you are walking for a time in the world between sleeps, that world of peace, of memory, and of rest, that lies just beyond the dream and just before the morning. And when the weight of your body settles once again and your eyes begin to close, you return not just to sleep, but to the long story of sleepers before you, whose dreams once flowed like rivers beneath the stars, whose nights were long and slow and filled with meaning. Close your eyes now and let the moon pass. Let the night carry you back into rest, back into warmth, and let your story continue with theirs in silence, in softness, in the deep and ancient language of sleep. Before we are ever aware of day or night, of blankets or dreams, we are held in arms, cradled, rocked, sung to, and wrapped in warmth. The very beginning of our journey into sleep is one of closeness, of breath against breath, of voices, low and soothing in the hush of evening. In every culture, in every time, people have created ways to lull their youngest into sleep, not only to rest, but to feel safe, to feel loved, to feel at home in a world still new and wide and full of wonder and sound. The cradle is one of our oldest inventions, a simple, curved vessel, sometimes carved from a single piece of wood, sometimes assembled with love and patience, designed to sway gently. With the motion of breath or touch, the soft creak of wood rocking slowly has soothed countless generations, the rhythm mirroring that bee of the womb, that soft, floating place we all once knew in ancient Rome. Cradles were often made of woven reeds or small wooden frames lined with wool. Roman mothers sang lullabies as their hands guided the gentle sway of the cradle, their voices joining a tradition older than language itself, a song for sleep, a whisper for dreams in colder climates. Viking mothers might wrap their babies in fur-lined cribs and lay them near the hearth, so the warmth of the fire would guard their slumber night after night beside the soft breathing of the home. In Africa, hand-woven baskets cradled infants beneath the open sky, shaded by thatched roofs or carried close to the mother. body, even in sleep. The baby remained near the scent, the heartbeat, the rhythm of care, uninterrupted. In South and Central America, hammocks were often used for babies, as well as adults, strung between walls or trees. They swayed with the wind, or a gentle push, rocking without effort held by the air itself. Mothers would sing and pat softly at the fabric until sleep came like a soft tide flowing in. In Japan, infants were swaddled tightly and laid on futons close to their mothers, who might keep one hand resting on the baby. Promise of presence, of safety, of love, across the quiet hours. The lullaby was not just a melody, but a ritual, a bridge between wakefulness and rest, a way to pass down stories, hopes, protection in the language of hums, and sighs in the hush that settles when a child begins to sleep. Even the very young know the comfort of rhythm, of repetition, of warmth. We come into the world needing to be wrapped, not just in cloth, but in care, in the closeness of others, in the heartbeat of those who watch over us through the dark. Sleep, for the youngest, has always been more than rest. It is trust. It is the first lesson in letting go and being held. It is the first language of night, and for the parent or caregiver, the act of laying a child to sleep is as ancient and sacred as the night itself. So tonight, if you remember being held, or if you have ever watched someone fall asleep in your arms, know that you are part of a long, unbroken story. The first sleeps of life, the rocking, the quiet, the love, all passed gently down from hand to hand, heart to heart. And perhaps in your own sleep now, you are still rocked, still cradled by memory, by the long arms of time, by the hush that carries every soul from waking into dreams. Long before roofs and rooms and shuttered windows, before linen sheets and woven blankets, we slept beneath the sky, beneath the arc of stars, the curve of moonlight, and the drifting songs of night, insects, and wind. The earliest sleepers had no bed but the ground, and yet their rest was not without beauty. They found warmth in fire and shelter in caves or beneath low branches. Their dreams curled into the shape of the land, the pulse of the earth beneath them, steady and deep. Imagine lying down on a bed of dry grass with the crackle of a small fire nearby, the scent of wood smoke drifting upward, mixing with the cool air of dusk above you. The stars begin to blink into view, slowly, gently, until they are many more than you can count. No ceiling, no wall, just sky, a great black ocean filled with light. In ancient times, people often slept outside by necessity, but also by trust. They trusted in the world around them, in the rhythm of sun and moon, in the warnings of wind and animal call, in the strength of their own bodies wrapped in fur or hide or nothing at all. If the night was warm enough, they fell asleep with the day's dust still on their skin and awoke with dew in their hair. In desert lands, people lay beneath wide, silent skies, the ground cooling as the stars rose, blankets of woven wool pulled tightly around them, and stories shared softly until speech faded into stillness. In these places, the stars were not far. They felt near, close enough to speak, to a map drawn across the night that might guide a journey or guard a dream. In forested regions, the canopy of trees created its own kind of night shadows, layered upon shadows with tiny gaps through which stars peered like curious eyes. People slept on mats of leaves or moss close to the earth, where the scent of pine or damp soil whispered of life and stillness. They listened to the crack of branches, the slow hoot of owls, and felt protected, not afraid. The woods were not empty, they were alive. Nomadic tribes across plains and tundras carried their beds with them, rolled blankets tied to their backs, or stretched across animals' tents, might be raised if storms threatened. But when skies were clear, it was often a gift to sleep outdoors, to breathe the same air as the horses and the grasses, and to feel the world move slowly around you while you slept. Even in more recent centuries, people slept beneath the sky during travel, during war, during harvest seasons. Workers in fields might lie down at night beneath wagons or beneath trees, their arms folded, their hats pulled. Lo, the stars above them, like a silent roof, stretching forever. Sleeping outside was not just a necessity, but sometimes a joy, a return to something older. And quieter, the body remembered how to rest on the ground, how to listen, how to be small in a vast world without fear, only wonder. And even now, in quiet campsites or backyards, people still return to this ancient practice, laying a sleeping bag on the earth, turning off lights, and letting the sky remind them of their place, not lost, but part of it, a breathing, dreaming creature, resting beneath the same stars that watched over all who came before. So as you lie in your own space tonight, perhaps behind walls and windows, perhaps surrounded by silence or gentle noise, remember that the sky is still there above you, wide and endless, and kind it has watched. A million sleepers close their eyes and drift away, carried not by featherbeds or fine pillows, but by peace, by earth, by time. As we drift further into the world of sleep, let us look now at what we wear when the day is done and our eyes grow heavy, the clothes of the night, the robes of rest and comfort, the fabric that touches the skin when all else is quiet. Before there were pajamas, before there were flannel pants or buttoned shirts just for sleep, people simply undressed or changed into garments meant for softness and warmth. In many times and places, nightwear was not its own category, but a continuation of the day's end, a shift from labor to stillness, from outside to within. In ancient Egypt, the wealthy might sleep in fine linen, so thin and light, it was said to whisper against the skin made from flax, and spun with care it was worn, loosely draped like a second breeze over the body, while the poor might sleep in what they wore by day, or with little more than a cloth wrap against the heat. In Greece and Rome, the tunic served both day and night, simple and breathable. It allowed for ease in rest. Some wrapped themselves in cloaks or shawls before lying down, especially in the cooler seasons. Sleep came not with the feel of fashion, but with the assurance of familiarity. The garments had been worn. They knew the shape of the body and the rhythm of breath. Warmth was everything, and layering was a skill. People wrapped themselves not only in blankets, but in the comfort of what they wore, each layer a barrier against the draft and the dark. Long pieces of fabric tied or draped to keep the head warm, since heat was often lost there, and fires would burn low through the night. Europeans wore nightgowns of cotton or silk, often long and flowing, embroidered with delicate patterns, while men might don loose nightshirts and occasionally dressing gowns when rising briefly in the night. In the East, beautiful traditions formed as well. In China, silk robes were worn to bed, graceful and smooth, gliding across the skin like water. In Japan, yukata, a light cotton kimono, became a popular summer sleep garment, airy and simple, both elegant and restful. It was sleepwear, designed not just for comfort, but for beauty. By the Victorian era, in the West, pajamas as we know them began to emerge, inspired by garments worn in South Asia, where the word itself originated, meaning leg garment. They were adapted into tailored two-piece sets, first by men and later by women, stitched with buttons, lined with piping, and often striped or white. They were garments made just for sleep, just for the sacred hours of rest. Even children's nightclothes became their own tradition. Flannel nightgowns with lace collars or tiny footed sleepers, soft and snug, wrapped around small limbs and sleepy eyes, each detail chosen not for fashion, but for comfort, for the feeling of safety in the dark. To the hush of night, soft cotton silk wool fleece, each holding the memory of body and breath of rest and quiet. Tonight, whatever you wear or don wear, whether it's an old shirt stretched by years or a pair of matching pajamas, freshly folded, let it feel like a signal to the self that it is time to let go, time to lie down, time to return once more to the rhythm of sleep, to the hush of the heart and the softness of the dark. As we drift further into the world of sleep, let us look now at what we wear when the day is done, and our eyes grow heavy, the clothes of the night, the robes of rest and comfort, the fabric that touches the skin when all else is quiet. Before there were pajamas, before there were flannel pants or buttoned shirts just for sleep, people simply undressed or changed into garments meant for softness and warmth in many times and places. Nightwear was not its own category, but a continuation of the day's end, a shift from labor to stillness, from outside to within. In ancient Egypt, the wealthy might sleep in fine linen so thin and light it was said to whisper against the skin made from flax, and spun with care it was worn loosely draped like a second breeze over the body. While the poor might sleep in what they wore by day, or with little more than a cloth wrap against the heat. In Greece and Rome, the tunic served both day and night, simple and breathable. It allowed for ease in rest. Some wrapped themselves in cloaks or shawls before lying down, especially in the cooler seasons. Sleep came not with the feel of fashion, but with the assurance of familiarity. The garments had been worn. They knew the shape of the body and the rhythm of breath. Warmth was everything, and layering was a skill. People wrapped themselves not only in blankets, but in the comfort of what they wore, each layer a barrier against the draft and the dark. During the Middle Ages, in castles and cottages alike, people wore what was practical: women in long chemises, men in simple undershirts, sometimes full of patches and softened by used nightcaps, became common too. Long pieces of fabric tied or draped to keep the head warm, since heat was often lost there, and fires would burn low through the night. As time passed and materials changed, sleepwear slowly became its own category by the 17th and 18th centuries. Wealthy Europeans wore nightgowns of cotton or silk, often long and flowing, embroidered with delicate patterns, while men might don loose nightshirts and occasionally dressing gowns when rising briefly in the night. Where the word itself originated, meaning leg garment, they were adapted into tailored two-piece sets, first by men and later by women, stitched with buttons, lined with piping, and often striped or white. They were garments made just for sleep, just for the sacred hours of rest. Even children's nightclothes became their own tradition. Flannel nightgowns with lace collars or tiny footed sleepers, soft and snug, wrapped around small limbs and sleepy eyes, each detail chosen not for fashion but for comfort, for the feeling of safety in the dark. And so what we wear to bed became part of the ritual, part of the transition from the noise of the day to the hush of night, soft cotton, silk, wool, fleece, each holding the memory of body and breath, of rest and quiet. Tonight, whatever you wear or Dan T wear, whether it's an old shirt stretched by years or a pair of matching pod pajamas, freshly folded, let it feel like a signal to the self that it is time to let go, time to lie down, time to return once more to the rhythm of sleep, to the hush of the heart and the softness of the dark. Now let us step beyond the surface of sleep, beyond the blankets and beds, beyond the quiet breathing, and into the world that lives behind closed eyes, the world of dreams, strange, shifting, wordless, yet full of meaning dreams, have been with us, always silent companions to every night. In the earliest times, dreams were not merely odd flickers of thought. They were sacred. They were messages from the gods, from spirits, from ancestors. They were taken seriously, more real in some ways than waking life. A dream could guide a hunt, choose a leader, warn of danger, or bring comfort from the dead. In ancient Mesopotamia, clay tablets tell of kings who dreamed of rivers turning to blood, of stars falling from the sky, of gods whispering secrets in the dark. These dreams were recorded, interpreted, studied carefully by priests and scribes for what they might reveal about the future or the will of the divine. The Egyptians believed dreams were journeys of the soul. While the body slept, the Ka, or spirit, would leave and travel to other realms. Dreams could offer insight, prophecy, or healing. Dream books were kept with symbols and meanings. If you dreamed of a cat, or a fish, or a rising sun, each had its place in the great web of signs. In Greece, philosophers like Aristotle and Plato wondered about the nature of dreams. Were they reflections of desire, echoes of the day, or signs from another realm? Temples called Asclepians were built where the sick would sleep in hopes of dreaming a cure. They would lie down under stars or painted ceilings, waiting for a vision or a whisper from the god of healing. The Romans, too, saw meaning in dreams. Soldiers consulted seers. Before battle, emperors listened to omens in sleep. A white bird, or a burning tree, or a child with no face could shift the course of decisions. Dreams were a kind of night wisdom, not to be ignored. In ancient China, dreams were understood as a balance between yin and yang, between the earthly and the heavenly. They were deeply linked to health, to harmony, to the rhythms of the body and the cosmos. A bad dream might suggest imbalance, while a good dream meant the spirit was in tune with the world. In indigenous traditions around the world, dreams have long held special weight. Some cultures speak of dream time, a space older than time itself where ancestors live and the earth speaks. Others weave dream catchers to filter the night air, letting only gentle visions pass through to the dreamer. During the Middle Ages, dreams were still seen as signs, though often with caution. They might be from angels or demons, or simply the result of what one ate or thought too long upon before. Bed monasteries taught that dreams could tempt or teach, visions of light or darkness. A soul might wake, shaken or awakened. And in the age of science, dreams became a subject of study. Theories arose. Freud with his idea of hidden desires, Jung with his belief in symbols shared by all humans across time. The idea grew that our dreams are mirrors, showing us pieces of ourselves we do not see in daylight. Yet, even now, even with books and charts and research, there is mystery in dreams. Why we return again and again to certain places, why we fly or fall or speak with the lost, no one fully knows. And perhaps we are not meant to. The dream remains a personal world, half known, half felt, more emotion than event, more image than word. So, tonight, as you sink into your own sleep, know that your dreams may carry more than memory. They may hold a thread of the past, a whisper from your own soul, or nothing at all but peace and color. Let them come gently, whatever they are, soft shadows on the wall of the mind, reminders that sleep is more than rest. It is a place, a world, a path inward and onward. Sleep does not happen in silence. Not truly, it happens in a soundscape. A gentle, ever-changing music made of wind and whispers, footsteps and flickers each night brings with it its own rhythm and hum. The world may dim, but it does not go mute, and those sounds have followed sleepers for thousands of years. In the ancient world, night was never entirely quiet in the desert. The sand moved softly, grains shifting with the breeze in jungles. The call of insects rose like a lullaby, high and constant in mountains. The low moan of wind swept through stone and tree, and in cities of old, the creak of carts, the murmur of voices, the bark of dogs, all spoke quietly into the dark. People slept near animals for warmth and company. The bleat of a goat, the shift of a cow, the soft thud of hooves became familiar. Background songs in medieval villages, the rooster might crow even before dawn, blending with the hush of sleeping children and the rustle of straw beneath bodies turned to find comfort. Inside homes, fires popped and hissed, embers glowing low beneath the hearth crackle. A dog stirred in its sleep, a baby sighed in the cradle, sometimes a voice from a dream escaped in a murmur or a cry. People learned the patterns and pulses of their own homes, and those soft interruptions did not always disturb sleep. Sometimes they deepened it. In great houses, servants moved through hallways, careful but not silent. A door creaked. A pot shifted. Someone climbed stairs, the noble above stirring only slightly because the night was alive. And it was known that not all stillness comes without sound. The passing hours on distant towers, monks rang small chimes, calling one another to midnight prayer, and then back to bed in the calm after the sound lingered like the breath of the sacred itself. In towns and cities, a watchman might call the hour, lantern in hand, his voice drifting over rooftops as the rest of the town lay bundled in darkness. And even when gaslights arrived, when trains began to move across the land, when factories hummed through the twilight, sleep bent itself around the noise, people adjusted, ears tuned themselves to the new lullabies of modern life. Some found comfort in the ticking of clocks, others in the soft static of radios left humming through the night. Even now, in our world of electric sounds, some fall asleep to machines that mimic rain or thunder, or forests recreated in tiny loops to bring us back to the noises of the natural night. Because sleep is not about silence, it is about safety and the sounds we grow used to, whether it is a parent's footsteps down the hall or the low thrum of distant traffic, the hiss of wind against the window or the breath of a loved one nearby. These are the things that hold us through the hours. Tonight, as you rest, listen not just with your ears, but with your whole body to the shape of the quiet around you. Maybe it's not truly quiet, maybe there is a hum or a chirp or the slow rhythm of something shifting nearby. But if it feels gentle, if it feels steady, let it rock you inward. Let it remind you that you are held, you are safe, and the night is long but kind. Every night we cross a threshold, we let go, we drift, we surrender. But every morning we return from that place and the way. We wake the way people have always woken, is just as rich a part of the story of sleep as the dreams or the beds or the darkness that comes before. In early times, Waking came with the sun or the animals' roosters. Crowing dogs, stirring goats, bleating for the hand of a farmer's sleep was not timed by alarms, but by need, by hunger, by warmth, by light. Slowly light crept across the floor, and the body remembered itself, opening eyes, stretching limbs rising from the shared bed, or the straw mat, or the cloak on stone. In Egypt, the morning was sacred light, itself was holy priests, and workers bathed and offered prayers. At dawn, before food, before labor, before speech, they greeted the sun god, Ra, with silence or chant, acknowledging that waking was not just physical, it was spiritual. In ancient Greece, athletes and soldiers woke early to train and stretch. Philosophers may have risen slowly with thought already. Swirling poets listening to the bird calls, filtering through clay walls, sipping water from clay cups, washing sleep from their faces in cool basins. Before turning toward the day, the common folk rose more abruptly to labor and motion. The clatter of carts, the call of merchants, the shift from dark to light made clear by noise and motion. Stepped barefoot across cold stone into echoing chapels and sang into silence. Waking was an act of worship, an opening of self to another day of purpose. In homes across medieval Europe, families woke close together. The fire coaxed back to life from embers, bread was sliced, porridge stirred, animals fed, children roused gently or quickly, depending on the work ahead. And always there was the quiet talk, the murmuring of voices, newly returned to the world. As clocks entered life, waking became measured more exactly: the chime of a town bell, the clang of a metal triangle in farmyards, the ring of a handbell in schools, and for some, a personal servant or family member might shake a shoulder, whisper a name, lift the curtain slightly to let morning spill across the bed. Later came alarm clocks. Mechanical buzzing, strange and sharp a sound the body did not love, but learned to obey. Factories required precise hours. Cities demanded motion, and sleep began to end by command, not by instinct. Yet still people tried to soften the moment. A hot cup of tea, placed in a hand, a splash of water, the stroke of a comb through hair, a quiet song, a window opened to birdsong, or breeze rituals, large and small, to welcome the body back to the day. Even now, in the hum of modern life, some light a candle, some stretch, some linger in the stillness, eyes closed just a little longer, savoring the weight of a blanket, the memory of a dream, the breath of morning not yet spoken. Because waking is not just rising, it is returning. It is crossing again from the private dark into the shared light. And the way we do it, the way we always have, tells us who we are, what we value, and how gently we wish to be held by time. So as you drift now on the edge of sleep, know that the return will come gently. That morning will meet you just as softly as this night has, and that your own waking will become another quiet thread in the long, long fabric of human rest. For most of human history, sleep was a mystery, something sacred or strange, or simply accepted. It came when it came, and passed when it must. But in recent centuries, humans began to study it, to watch it, to question it, with tools and notes and machines to ask, not just when or where we sleep, but how and why and what it means. In the 19th century, doctors and thinkers began to wonder aloud about dreams, about insomnia, about the strange pull of night. Some believed sleep was a form of temporary death, the body shutting down to repair itself. Others thought it was a cooling of the brain, a sort of nightly maintenance that kept the mind from breaking under the weight of thought. But the real revolution came with the invention of tools that could watch the brain while it slept, machines that tracked electrical pulses that revealed patterns of waves rising and falling like tides across the hours. We learned that sleep is not one thing, but many. It is stages and cycles, a dance of deep and light and dreaming. There is REM sleep when the brain sparks like fire, when dreams flicker fast behind closed eyes, when the muscles go still to protect us from acting out our visions. And then there is non-REM sleep, slower, quieter, deeper, where the body truly rests and cells repair and memory settles into place. Scientists discovered that the body does not sleep all at once, but in rhythms through the night, roughly every 90 minutes. We pass from light to deep, to dreaming and back again. And this rhythm, this slow rocking of the brain, is as ancient as breath itself. We learned that sleep affects nearly everything: the heart, the mind, the immune system, that too little sleep dulls. Memory frays emotion, weakens the body, and that good sleep can heal almost silently each night, like a gentle doctor moving room to room within us. Still the mysteries remain. Why do we dream? What do our minds do in sleep that waking cannot? Why do children sleep so deeply and the elderly more lightly? Why do some wake too early, too often, or never wish to sleep at all? The more we learned, the more the questions unfolded. Sleep became a subject of labs and studies and therapy, a frontier of medicine, new treatments for disorders like sleep apnea or narcolepsy or night terrors, rooms with wires and soft music where volunteers lay down to be watched as their brains bloomed with electric light in the dark. And in our daily lives, our habits changed: electric lights, pushed bedtime later screens, pulled eyes long past dusk, alarms broke the morning open before it was ready. And still, the body kept its ancient rhythms, pulling us toward sleep. Even when we resisted, whispering its need in yawns and sighs and blinks. We learned to track our sleep with watches and apps, to measure rest in numbers. But we also began to forget some of the softness, the shared warmth, the sacredness that once wrapped sleep in reverence, in silence, in meaning. Yet not all is lost. We still tell stories before bed. We still light candles. We still lay heads on pillows, with hope for rest, for dreams, for waking refreshed and renewed in the science of sleep. While precise still leaves room for mystery, for the spaces between what can be known and what must simply be felt. Tonight, your own sleep may follow this rhythm. Your brain may rise and fall. Your dreams may flicker like shadows across a cave wall. Your body will do what it has always known. How to do without instruction, without effort, only trust and time and dark. And in the morning, perhaps, you will wake just a little more aware of what sleep truly is, not just a pause, not just an end to the day, but a journey through a world still being explored, still not fully mapped, still quietly sacred. We have wandered far through chambers of the past, beneath stars and roofs, through furs and feathers and flax, through rhythms of night and waking through dreams, and science and whispers in the dark. But here, in this final hush, let us return to something simple, something soft: the blanket, the cover, the comforter, the quilt. It has always been there in one form or another, drawn over shoulders, tugged to the chin, wrapped around small feet, draped across lovers or children or strangers, huddled for warmth or simply for peace. More than warmth, more than cloth, it is a signal to the body, to the mind, to the spirit, that the day is done, that safety has arrived. In ancient times, people layered whatever they had: animal hides stitched together, grass mats, woven tightly, wool spun by hand. Sometimes dyed, sometimes plain, a heavy piece of felt, a fur from a hunt, a shawl borrowed from mother or sister or friend, placed gently across a resting form. In colder regions, blankets were survival. In warmer ones, they were gentle weights against the breeze. In palaces, they were stitched with silver or trimmed with lace. In cottages, they were patched and mended, each thread holding a memory, a season, a name. Some blankets told stories, quilted by hands that remembered every scrap: a dress once worn, a uniform once stitched, a curtain once hung over a childhood window, each square part of a life now sewn into warmth. From friend to friend, as gesture, as comfort, as farewell. Even today, the weight of a blanket can calm the breath, slow the heart, offer what the world cannot always give: safety. Stillness, a return to something we cannot name but know. And the act of covering oneself, of pulling fabric up and over, is its own ritual, small and sacred. We do it without thought each night, and yet it connects us to generations before us, to grandmothers smoothing corners, to fathers checking in silence, to sisters sharing stories side by side in the dark. There are studies now that tell us what ancient bodies already knew: that gentle weight calms the nervous system, that warmth helps the body release, that wrapping ourselves is not just for the cold. It is for the soul, the part of us that craves holding, that needs to feel enclosed, protected, at peace. So as this story of sleep folds closed, like the cover of a quiet book, remember your own blanket. However it looks, however it feels, it is part of a long tradition, older than memory, deeper than words, a symbol of care and love and the endless return to rest. You are part of that story now. One more sleeper in a line that stretches back to the dawn of time, a line of dreamers, breathers, quiet souls who once longed for rest and found it under the stars, beneath beams, beside fire, with the wind at the door and a cover over their heart. Now let the blanket do its work. Let it carry you gently wherever the night wishes to take you. The story is not over. It simply continues in the softness of sleep, in the hush of night, in the warmth that holds you now. Close your eyes now and listen, not just with your ears, but with your whole body. Listen to the sounds around you, the hum, the hush, the subtle rhythm of night that plays whether we notice it or not, and has always played since the first sleepers curled in darkness. Long before music was written, before lullabies were sung by mothers, before wind chimes or radios or whispered bedtime songs, the world made its own sounds, and they became the background of dreams. The sigh of wind in trees, the rustle of leaves, the slow breath of animals sleeping nearby, the crackle of a fire settling to coals, the drip of water from a roof edge, the call of an owl, the chirp of crickets, the murmur of something unseen just beyond the walls. In ancient places, these sounds were never called noise. They were part of the world's voice. Night itself was speaking. And people listened, not with fear, but with familiarity, each sound a companion, a reminder that life still moved, even in the dark. In cities and towns, night sounds changed. The clatter of a cart in late return, the soft step of a watchman, the bark of a dog, the echo of footsteps between stone buildings, the creak of a shutter, the song of someone walking home with their thoughts. Some sounds meant safety, the rhythm of breathing nearby, the tick of a clock, the low lull of conversation drifting from another room, and some meant warning, a distant shout, a sharp snap a silence that came too suddenly. But even those sounds became part of the night. Monasteries had bells that rang quietly to mark hours even through the night. Monks, stirring to prayer, then returning to bed, carried back to sleep on the soft notes fading into stone walls in ships at sea. Sailors heard the waves slap the hull, the creak of rope, the moan of wind, and found comfort in those regular movements in the sea's steady lullaby. And now, even with technology, with the soft white noise of machines, or the hum of distant traffic, or the gentle whir of a fan, we still seek sound in sleep, not to wake us, but to wrap us, to carry us into dream. Some keep recordings of ocean waves or rain falling on leaves. Some keep windows open to hear wind move through trees. Some let music play softly in the distance, piano or strings, or a voice without words, just tone and warmth and rhythm. Because the night does not speak in silence. It sings in its own way, always has. And when we listen, when we welcome those sounds without fear, they become part of the story, part of the comfort, part of what carries us from one world to the next. So listen tonight to whatever your night is offering, whether near or far, loud or soft, close or distant, each sound a thread in the fabric of rest. The ancient music of sleep, still playing, still waiting, still here with you. Let us step now into the soft dark of old evenings, when sleep came not in one stretch, but in two gentle parts, with a space between like the space between heartbeats, or the pause between breaths. A rhythm forgotten by most, but once known by nearly all. In centuries past, it was common to sleep in segments, the first sleep and the second sleep, separated by a waking hour in the middle of night, when candles might be lit and a hush filled the room, not the hush of sleep, but of quiet, wakefulness, a sacred stillness between worlds. After the first sleep, people might stir, not fully awake, but not dreaming. Either they might speak in murmurs, reach for warmth, sip water, tend the fire. Some prayed, some wrote, some sat in thought, or in silence with another beside them, eyes half closed, hearts half open to the dark in monastic life. This rhythm was observed as devotion monks would wake for nocturnal prayers, a rhythm not of disturbance, but of balance. And even in village homes, this waking hour was embraced not as interruption, but as part of the night's full pattern. The first sleep would begin not long after dusk, when candles burned low and bodies cooled under wool or straw, and after some hours, the body would rise gently stirred from its deepest dreaming, but not yet ready for morning. And so this middle time began soft and slow, like twilight turned inward. Historians call it segmented sleep, but to those who lived it, there was no label. It was simply the way sleep flowed like a tide, in and out, each wave resting the body, then lifting it gently toward thought or company or quiet joy. Letters from the past speak of this time in the night, used for reflection, for small talk, for lovemaking, for tending the sick, for listening to rain. It was a space for being without doing, where nothing was urgent, and everything was dim and close and kind. And then, as the body grew heavy again, the second sleep would arrive without summons, without effort, a return to warmth, a sinking into dreams, once more carrying with it the softness of the hour just past. Even now, when people wake in the night, they often feel concern or frustration, but perhaps they are simply echoing the old rhythm, the body remembering what it once knew, that waking in the dark can be peaceful, can be natural, can be part of sleep, not a break from it. To lie quietly and let thoughts drift like clouds, to hear the night sounds and feel the weight of the blanket, to breathe slowly and deeply and wait for sleep to return. Not as a stranger, but as a friend who never truly left. And so tonight, if you wake in the dark, if your eyes open to shadows on the ceiling, if the silence presses close, do not fear it. It is not lost time. It is a gift, an hour once cherished by many before you, a gentle pause in the story of your rest. Let it hold you, let it carry you until the second sleep finds you and draws you once more into the quiet arms of night. There are nights heavy with darkness, and nights barely touched by it, places where the sun disappears for months, and places where it barely sets at all. And through these rhythms of the earth, through cold and bloom and long shadows, the way people sleep has always shifted and swayed like leaves on the breath of a season. In the far north, where winter brings endless night, people learned to stretch, sleep like wool to make it last, and fill the long hours with softness. Fires were kept glowing through the coldest nights, and sleep came in layers and waves, blankets stacked thick and dreams deep and quiet, while outside snow pressed against wooden walls like a muffled drum. Children slept close to parents and animals, sometimes two, all warmth gathered in one place to keep the cold from creeping in. And still there was beauty. Outside, the stars, brighter than ever, the auroras, dancing green and blue above rooftops like a silent lullaby of the sky. And when summer came, the sun did not fall, and the people still found ways to sleep, covering windows with cloth or wood, waiting for the body to slow despite the light, and letting sleep come when it would, sometimes in short bursts, sometimes in naps that clung to the edges of the day. Farther south, where seasons are softer, the rhythm of sleep changed more gently. Nights grew longer in winter and shorter in summer, but always there was a sense that the earth turned slowly and the body followed it. The farmers rose earlier in spring and worked later in fall. The shepherds lay beneath open skies and watched the stars with one eye open. In ancient times, before clocks ruled the day, people let the season guide when they rose and when they lay down. Darkness was not feared, but welcomed a cue to rest, a reminder that work could pause and thoughts could wander in dim quiet. In villages across Europe, winter meant longer evenings by the fire, storytelling, knitting, carving, wooden toys, or mending clothes. Before bed, candles lit early, and shutters closed tight, while summer brought laughter late into the night, meals eaten outdoors, and sleep delayed until the warmth lessened and breezes moved through the trees. Even in cities, sleep once changed with the seasons. Before electricity, before all-night street lamps. In winter, people slept longer, rose later, huddled closer, and moved slower, while in summer life bloomed after sunset, and rest came later and lighter, more interrupted by heat or insects or sound. The natural world shaped not just how people slept, but how they dreamed. Winter dreams were heavy and long, often quiet or strange, shaped by deep rest and hunger or memory, while summer dreams were brighter, sharper, more vivid, like flashes of sunlight caught in the mind. Even now, in our climate-controlled homes, with lights always on and schedules fixed, the seasons still reach us. We feel more tired in winter. We wake earlier with spring. We nap in summer. We turn inward in autumn. The old rhythms still speak if we listen. So, as the weather turns outside your window, whatever season finds you tonight, let your sleep reflect it. Let yourself rest more if the days are short, and move gently if the heat lingers. Sleep as the world sleeps, not as a task, but as a gift shaped by wind and leaf and sun and snow. There is a kind of magic in music that arrives just before sleep, a hush that carries words on the soft edge of melody, and this magic has existed for as long as there have been voices to sing and ears to listen. Lullabies, ancient and eternal, passed from mother to child, father to cradle, sister to brother, woven into the air like threads of comfort. In every culture, lullabies have bloomed from hearts tired but tender. In the Middle East, mothers once sang of stars and sleep gods and gardens. In Persia, lullabies floated over rooftops in the night. Wind carried in rhythm with the rocking of cradles, soft vowels and long notes drifting across the desert, dark. In China, lullabies were quiet, gentle stories, told in tones that calmed even the restless, often using nature as image. The moon as a friend, the wind as a voice that sang to soft rivers, flowing to meet dreams, tigers and cranes, not to fear but to watch over sleep, like guardians in mist. In the Nordic lands, lullabies sometimes carried a chill like the wind outside telling tales of fairies and forest spirits that kept children safe if they listened and closed their eyes. Songs made of snow and silence and long evenings wrapped in wool. In Spain and across Latin America, the lullabies held passion even in their softness. Flamenco chords slowed to a hush, lyrics full of love and sorrow, both because sleep is not only for the cheerful, it is also for the weary. Not every night brings sleep, not every pillow welcomes dreams, and for as long as humans have closed their eyes, there have been those who lie awake, staring into darkness, listening to the slow tick of time as thoughts drift like clouds too heavy to pass. Sleeplessness is old, older than cities, older than stories, a quiet companion that visits without warning and lingers without mercy. In the ancient world, the sleepless were not always alone. They were watched over by gods or spirits, or feared for being touched by other worlds. In Mesopotamia, people believed that demons could steal sleep away, entering through windows, or whispers, cures, were charms hung by the bedside, prayers carved into clay tablets placed near the head, not to summon dreams, but to protect the mind from what kept them away. The Greeks, too, struggled with insomnia. They spoke of Hypnos, the god of sleep, and his twin, Thanatos, the god of death, and knew that rest and stillness were close cousins when sleep would not come. Philosophers turned inward, asking what thoughts kept them. Awake physicians prescribed warm wine or herbs, or long walks at twilight. The body softened, through habit the mind calmed by ritual. In Rome, sleeplessness was common among the powerful, the anxious, the overworked. The poet Ovid wrote of it in verses longing for quiet. The emperor Marcus Aurelius confessed in his Meditations that many nights found him pacing in thought. Trying to reason with the restlessness inside the cure was never easy, but the effort to find peace was a kind of prayer. Medieval healers saw insomnia as a balance gone wrong, too much heat in the body, or too many worries in the soul. They used lavender, crushed and sprinkled on pillows, valerian boiled in broth or wine, soft cloth soaked in chamomile tea and placed over tired eyes. Monks in cloisters sang psalms into the night, not always because they wished to, but because rest would not come, and music was all they had. In the East, the traditions of medicine treated sleep as a flow, a current, disrupted by diet or energy or grief. In ancient China, insomnia was seen as an imbalance of yin and yang, too much activity in the heart, too much fire in the liver, too many thoughts tied to sorrow. Acupuncture was used to open channels, and herbs like swan zhao ren helped bring stillness back. The Victorians in their gaslit rooms were famously sleepless minds, too full of invention and worry. They tried everything from feather beds to hot bricks at their feet, to soft readings from novels or psalters. Physicians advised gentle stretching, or milk warmed over flame, or if nothing worked, the taking of laudanum or opium, which brought sleep. but not peace. And even today, insomnia walks beside us, glowing phones under pillows, clocks that blink in the dark, pills stacked in drawers, breathing apps, and white noise machines, and still the turning of the mind continues. Sleeplessness is no longer feared as a curse, but understood as a shadow of living too fast, too bright, too long. But there is a strange beauty in the night, when all else sleeps, the sounds that are only heard in silence, the slow thoughts that come when no one is watching. Many poets have found their best words in those hours. Many painters, their clearest visions. Many seekers, their quiet truths. So if you find yourself awake as the world sleeps, know that you are not broken, only human, part of a long chain of restless hearts, stretching back to the firelight of caves and forward into every lighted window in every quiet city. You are not alone in this wakefulness, and sometimes even sleeplessness can be soft if you stop fighting and simply let the night hold you gently. Close your eyes for a moment and drift inward past the hush of blankets, past the rhythm of breath, into the world where logic softens and memory reshapes itself. This is the land of dreams, ancient and ever new the place, where the mind speaks in riddles and images, where stories are spun from pieces of truth and feeling and shadow. For as long as people have slept, they have dreamed, and for just as long they have wondered what those dreams mean. Are they messages from the gods, from the self, from somewhere in between? Are they predictions, warnings, reflections, or just the flickering of thought with no reason at all? In ancient Egypt, dreams were sacred scrolls of the night believed to hold prophecy and divine communication. Pharaohs had dream interpreters who studied symbols, recorded visions, and translated their meanings. A snake might mean protection or danger. A flood might foretell abundance or fear. Temples were built where people went to sleep in hopes of dreaming something important. It was called dream incubation, and it was taken as seriously as prayer. In Mesopotamia, clay tablets preserved dreams and their meanings. Even nightmares were copied by scribes, so future generations could understand what it meant to fly, to fall, to see fire or teeth, or the dead. They believed that the soul left the body during sleep and wandered the world, encountering spirits, omens, and truth. In Greece, Aristotle and Hippocrates debated the nature of dreams. Were they bodily processes or divine messages? Some said dreams came from the stomach, others said from the stars. But all agreed they mattered. People visited dream temples, sacred places where they might lie down in hope of healing through the visions of the night. The Romans kept dream diaries and used dreams to guide decisions. Generals delayed battles based on a vision seen at dawn. Poets described dreams as gifts from beyond, or as torments to be deciphered and soothed. The Latin word somnium held within it not only the idea of sleep, but of mystery. In Asia, dreams were windows into the soul. In China, dreams were mapped and sorted by time and direction. Some dreams came from the heart, others from the liver, still others from the spirits of ancestors. Confucian thinkers believed dreams revealed character, while Taoists believed dreams could transport the spirit to other realms, a place where truth was clearer than in waking life. In the Islamic Golden Age, dream interpretation became a scholarly art tied to theology and psychology. Thinkers like Ibn Siryn wrote extensive guides to the meanings of dreams, helping people understand how symbols changed based on context. The color of a horse, the timing of a flood, the feeling within the dream, all were weighed and studied with care. In medieval Europe, dreams were often feared thought to be temptation or distraction from holy purpose, but they also gave rise to visions of saints, of angels, of paths not yet taken. Monks recorded their dreams in the margins of manuscripts, while pilgrims, by the time of Freud and Jung, the language of dreams had shifted again. Now dreams were keys to the unconscious maps, to hidden desires and ancient. And today still, we dream we see people we have lost, places we have never been. We fall, we fly, we search for something that keeps slipping away. We wake up with a feeling, with a color, with a song stuck in our mind, and we wonder what it meant, or if it meant anything at all. Dreams are the stories. Sleep tells us stories, shaped by memory, by emotion, by hunger and hope. Stories made not with words, but with images drawn in the air and gone by morning. And yet we remember some. If a dream comes to you, let it come gently. Let it pass through you like water or fire or birdsong. Know that you are part of a long line of dreamers, and that within those soft, strange visions is a piece of what it means to be human, to sleep, to wonder, to imagine without trying. Before machines hummed and screens glowed, before clocks ticked beside beds and alarms, weighted with sharp sounds, people turned to simpler tools to usher in the night, gentle companions of sleep, crafted with care, passed down through homes, but to invite it like a whisper, not a word. There were nightcaps long before they became cartoons, soft cloth tucked around the head to hold warmth and keep away drafts in cold. Stone cottages and drafty timber rooms, they were as essential as blankets, and in some places more. So silk for the wealthy, wool for the working, dyed in blues or left plain. White, they softened the chill and signaled the body that it was time to let go of the day. Some placed sleep stones beneath their pillows, smooth pebbles chosen from riverbeds, or special earth warmed in fire, or left to rest in moonlight, believed to carry calming energy, protection from nightmares, or the power to ease troubled thoughts, a practice still found in folk traditions from Ireland to Japan. Herbs, too, played a role. Small pouches filled with lavender or hops, sewn into linen sachets and slipped into bedding, the scent rising slowly as the body warmed the sheets, releasing oils into the air that slowed the breath and quieted the nerves. Mugwort used to stir dreams. Mint to soothe headaches, rosemary to guard the spirit, each plant chosen with care, not just for its smell, but for the story it carried. Dream catchers from Native American traditions wove webbed patterns from sinew and wood, designed to catch bad dreams before they could settle, the morning light dissolving them, while the good ones slipped down the feathers to the sleeper below, hung near the bed. They were guardians, silent and symbolic, each one telling a different story with every knot and bead. In Scandinavia, people once placed iron under the bed to ward off spirits. In Korea, wooden tigers were set near the door to chase away the creatures of bad luck. In the Andes, silver pins and woven talismans were worn to sleep, to keep the soul anchored during the wandering of dreams, belief and tradition forming layers of invisible protection around the sleeper. Feathers placed beneath pillows by those who believed they carried peaceful sleep, sometimes from a favorite bird, sometimes just soft and white, chosen by feel rather than sight, and in homes across the centuries. Bedtime prayers were a tool to not only of faith, but of habit, a way to close the day with rhythm and surrender. Some lit beeswax candles that gave off not only light, but a scent warm and sweet that filled a room with calm. The flame watched as the last waking moment slipped away. Others turned to water, listening to it trickle from a nearby jug or poured slowly into a bowl. The sound like distant rain, soothing in its steady fall. And then there were stories, always stories, told by a mother or a grandfather, whispered from memory, or made up on the spot, stories shaped like keys, unlocking the imagination and gently steering it toward sleep, the tale itself becoming the tool, the voice becoming the signal that all was well, that it was safe to drift. Even in silence, there were tools, breath counted backward, fingers curled, and released toes tensed and relaxed. Methods passed from one generation to the next, like secret songs, a language known only in the stillness between wakefulness and rest. So tonight, in your own quiet room, look around and see what tools you've chosen: a favorite pillow, a flickering lamp, a folded blanket with a scent from long ago. Perhaps your tools are new or invisible, or made only of thought, but they are there, helping you follow the same path walked by countless others into the hush of night. Sleep has always been a mystery, and where mystery walks, superstition is never far behind from the earliest days. People have watched the sleeping body with awe and caution, wondering what exactly happened when the eyes closed and the breath slowed, when the spirit seemed to leave for places unseen. Some believed sleep was a kind of death, a temporary surrender of the soul, and so they treated it with care and fear in equal measure. In ancient times, many cultures believed the soul wandered during sleep, traveling to distant lands, to speak with ancestors or glimpse the future, and because of this, a sudden awakening could startle the soul, or trap it between worlds that say. Some would wake a sleeper, slowly calling their name softly, or ringing a bell to guide the spirit home. In Slavic folklore, there were tales of night spirits who would sit upon a sleeper's chest, pressing the breath from their lungs and causing bad dreams. This idea traveled across lands and centuries, becoming the old hag in the English lore, the mare in Nightmare, the reason some people feared lying flat on their backs in the dark. In parts of Africa, it was believed that if one talked in their sleep, they might accidentally reveal secrets to spirits or invite bad luck, so families would place protective charms under the pillow or burn incense before bed to guard the mind in its most vulnerable state. In medieval Europe, mirrors were often covered at night, not only to ward off vanity, but because people feared that a soul returning from dreaming might be trapped within its reflection and never find its way back to the body. And some believed that moonlight falling directly on the face could cause madness or strange dreams. So curtains were drawn tightly and beds were turned away from windows. Even the direction of sleep mattered in many traditions. Sleeping with your head to the north was said to bring death or illness, while pointing south or east brought peace and energy. In India, Vastu Shastra advised precise sleeping directions to balance energy, while in Chinese, Feng Shui, the position of the bed, was thought to affect not only sleep but fortune, love, and long life. Sneezing in your sleep was once seen as a sign that someone was speaking of you in the night, and sleepwalking was considered dangerous, not just physically, but spiritually. Many thought a sleepwalker should never be awakened for fear their soul might never return, or their body might forget itself entirely. Some feared that open windows allowed spirits to drift in during sleep, so they kept iron nails near the frame or sprinkled salt on the sill to keep mischief out. In coastal villages, sailors placed nets over their beds, even on land, not for mosquitoes, but to protect against dreams that might lure them back to sea too soon. Nightmares were not just unpleasant, but considered messages or warnings sent by spirits, demons, or even witches in disguise. And so people would tie small knots in the corners of their sheets or hang protective herbs above the bed. Mugwort, rue, garlic, whatever the local belief deemed strong enough to guard against the night. Even today, bits of these superstitions remain. We knock on wood, we turn pillows to the cool side, we hesitate to sleep after hearing bad news. We still tuck a favorite item beside us, not just for comfort, but for protection. And somewhere deep inside, we still understand that sleep is more than rest. It is a passage through mystery and stories and shadow. So, as you drift tonight, think of the quiet guards around you, the traditions woven into your bedtime, without you knowing them, rituals handed down, not through books, but through habits and hushes, and a certain way of folding the blanket, just so as if to say, I am safe here, nothing will touch me until the sun returns. Long before books and screens and bedside lights, there were songs, gentle and slow, passed from mother to child, father to daughter, from one tired soul to another. Lullabies, the quiet music of sleep, have echoed through the ages, not for applause, not for performance, but to hush the world and hold the night still for just a little while. A lullaby is more than a melody. It is a soft rhythm of reassurance, woven from love and repetition, from breath and memory. Each culture carries its own lullabies, shaped by its language, its fears, its dreams. Some speak of stars and birds, some of wolves and wind, some warn and soothe at the same time, but all share the same purpose: to ease the listener into sleep. In ancient Babylon, clay tablets bear traces of lullaby songs, sung to cradle gods as well as infants' lines, written in cuneiform that told of calm rivers and gentle skies, and promised that no harm would come while the night passed in silence. In Egypt, 2 lullabies were offered to divine children, prayers set to melody, sung with swaying steps and watchful eyes. Greek mothers sang to their babies with lyres and whispered promises of sleep, like Lethe, the river of forgetfulness, letting the troubles of the day drift away in a gentle current. Even Aristotle remarked on the power of rhythm and melody to calm both child and adult, noting how the repetition of sound mirrored the heartbeat known from the womb. In the Norse lands, lullabies often carried a sharp edge, a warning to sleep quickly, lest trolls or spirits come peering through the window. Stories sung in minor keys that somehow still brought comfort, because they meant someone was watching, someone was near. And in every lullaby, there is that core truth that sleep is not just escape, but protection. In Japan, lullabies are often tender, but tinged with sorrow, songs of hard-working mothers, singing of rice fields and distant fathers, of cold winters and fleeting moments, but always with a soft refrain, a return to warmth and closeness, no matter what the world outside holds. And in Korea, lullabies, known as jjanga, are sung in hushed tones, promising the child rest and peace and a full life. In African traditions, lullabies are often sung in a call and response style, shared between elder and infant, between siblings and cousins, a circle of sound where everyone joins. The act of guiding someone into sleep together, the rhythm of the drum, the hum of voices, weaving comfort into the air. In the Americas, indigenous peoples created lullabies that honored the earth, the sky, the animals, the ancestors, sometimes sung in native tongues, sometimes with rattles or flutes. They held not just love, but history, reminding the child that they belong to a long, unbroken line of dreamers and sleepers. Even in medieval Europe, where life was harsh and brief lullabies persisted, sometimes in Latin, sometimes in the local dialect lullabies that spoke of angels standing guard, or that warned of night creeping in songs that asked the stars to stay lit a little longer, or begged the wind to be still for the sake of sleep. And in every lullaby a soft promise lies: you are not alone, you are not forgotten, you are held in the circle of care and sound until the day returns. The act of singing a lullaby is its own kind of prayer, whether to a child or to oneself, whether out loud or only in the heart. Tonight, perhaps, you do not need a melody, but somewhere in your memory is a lullaby, maybe. Just a few words or a tune hummed without knowing why. Maybe your own voice once sang it, or maybe it was sung to you and still lives in the spaces between waking and rest, waiting to be remembered. Let that soft echo return now. Let it rock you gently, even in silence. Even if you are alone in the room, the lullaby travels on the breath of time, reaching you from mothers and fathers, from grandmothers and strangers, all singing the same quiet thing: sleep now, you are safe. Time was not always measured in minutes and seconds, not always divided by digital screens or ticking hands. Once it was known only by the sun's light, by the crow of the rooster, or the dimming of the coals in the hearth. Sleep, too, followed this softer rhythm, rising and falling with the turning of the earth and the quiet march of seasons. In the ancient world, time was marked by the heavens, sundials and stars. Candles burned to measure hours, oil lamps counted in the length of shadows cast, and in this light sleep was less confined. It flowed in and out like breath, not tethered to alarms or working clocks, but shaped by darkness and need. Before artificial light, most people did not sleep in one long stretch, but in two gentle halves, what historians call segmented. Sleep first. Sleep began a few hours after nightfall, when Bodhis retired early under the cover of dusk. This was followed by a waking time in the deep middle of the night, sometimes for prayer, sometimes for thought or intimacy or work. Then the second sleep carried people through until dawn, a rhythm now largely forgotten, but once common across continents. Monks in medieval monasteries lived by bells, not clocks, each hour marked by the ringing of metal, calling them to prayer, to silence, to rest. The night divided into canonical hours, matins, lauds, vespers, each guiding not just devotion, but sleep. Patterns, short rests between vigils, a life where the soul's time outweighed the body's. In villages and towns, people rose with the sun and slept when darkness fell, save for the occasional gathering or festival. Or worry that stretched the night longer than usual. Time was counted in tasks. Milk the cow, light the fire, grind the grain, and when the work was done, the body knew it could rest. No need for schedules, no buzz of reminders, only the natural rhythm of effort and ease. The invention of the mechanical clock in the Middle Ages changed things slowly. At first, time became more visible. More fixed towns rang bells to mark the hours, calling people to markets or curfews, and sleep began to shift to fit these ringing tones. Work demanded punctuality, and rest began to make room for the rising world of order. With the arrival of gaslight and then electricity, night itself became shorter, brighter, busier. People stayed up later, slept less, and began to see sleep not as a sacred necessity, but as something to be trimmed or postponed or replaced with coffee. The clock no longer followed the stars, but forced them into its framework. Factories in the Industrial Revolution demanded early hours, strict shifts, and artificial wakefulness. Sleep was squeezed into narrow spaces between labor and responsibility, and the body began to suffer the loss of darkness, the loss of rhythm. Yet time continued to shape sleep, even in quiet ways. The invention of the alarm clock gave people power over their own rising and falling, a blessing and a burden. No longer did the birds or the fire or the fading light decide. It was now the shrill sound of a machine cutting through dreams. In the 20th century, new terms appeared: night owl, early bird, circadian rhythm, and scientists began to study sleep, not as mystery, but as science, dividing it into stages and cycles, measuring brain waves and eye movement, and redefining the hours of rest once more. Still, we remain shaped by time. We count our sleep in hours. We compare our rest to numbers on a screen. And sometimes we forget that sleep was once simply felt when the body was tired and the night was dark. Tonight, as you prepare for your own rest, take a moment to forget the clock. Let your body speak. Let your breath slow and your limbs grow still. Forget the tick, forget the count. Return for a while to that older time when rest came not by measure, but by need, when darkness meant stillness, and dreams arrived not on schedule, but in their own quiet time. From the very beginning, sleep has held a place beyond the physical, beyond the biological, beyond the simple closing of eyes and the falling of breath. In many cultures and faiths, sleep is not just rest, but a sacred encounter, a doorway to the divine, a meeting point between this world and the next. In ancient India, the Vedas spoke of sleep not as a void, but as a reunion with the self, the Atman, the soul, during slumber. The spirit was said to rise beyond the waking world, beyond suffering, beyond the cycle of action and reaction, into a state of blissful unity, where no division remained. This was more than rest, it was return. In early Judaism, the night held both promise and protection. The Psalms offered blessings for sleep, and prayers were whispered before bed, asking angels to stand watch, one at the head, one at the feet, one at the left, and one at the right. The Shema was spoken like a shield, a quiet chant to draw safety around the sleeper and guide the soul through darkness. In Christianity, sleep has long been seen as a symbol of divine trust, for to close one's eyes is to let go, to surrender to something larger than the self. The Bible speaks often of sleep as peace and renewal, and even death itself is called sleep in its gentlest form, a waiting, not an ending, a soft passage toward eternity. In Islam, sleep is a creation of God, a mercy, a moment when the soul travels and returns each morning. The Quran speaks of sleep as a sign of divine care and of dreams as possible messages. From above, before sleep comes a ritual, a washing of the body, a whispering of verses, a turning toward Mecca, and a hope that the soul will be returned safely by dawn. The first peoples of North America hold deep traditions about dreams and spirit. Rest is not an interruption, but a communication. Night is a sacred teacher. The dream catcher born from these beliefs is not just an ornament, but a woven prayer, a net to filter out harm and let wisdom pass through in silence and symbols. In many African traditions, sleep is when ancestors speak, guiding the living through visions, offering advice or warnings or blessings. People might sleep near sacred trees or with tokens, beside them shells, stones, herbs, to invite clarity in the dream and to keep the spirit safe in its nightly journey. Taoist teachings in China speak of sleep as a moment of natural return to the way, the Tao, a balancing of yin and yang, a harmony that allows the body to heal and the spirit to roam. Meditation before bed is not just calming, it is aligning, a clearing of the path for both body and breath. Buddhism teaches mindful sleep, a falling away of attachment, a preparation for death and rebirth. Some monks practice lucid dreaming, not for entertainment, but for insight, entering dreams with awareness to explore karma and consciousness with clarity and calm. Even today, in modern homes, rituals remain whether spoken aloud or only practiced in gesture. The glass of water beside the bed, the turning off of light with intention, the small breath before the pillow cradles the head, each act a kind of modern prayer, a promise that the night will pass gently and the soul will rise once more with the light. Tonight, let yourself feel that connection, not just to comfort, but to something deeper. Feel the air move gently around. You feel your body supported, feel your spirit watched over by all the invisible kindnesses that move through night, through silence, through history. You are not alone. You never have been. You are part of a long line of sleepers who trusted the night and found something sacred waiting on the other side of waking.
Dreams are the quiet gardens where the soul walks, without shoes, where the sky shifts with thought and the ground moves beneath. The weight of memory in every age, across every land, dreams have been seen, not just as flickers of the brain, but as messages, visions, warnings, and gifts. Something more than imagination, something deeper than sleep. In ancient Mesopotamia, dreams were recorded on clay tablets as divine. Kings would wake and seek the counsel of priests and scribes to interpret what they had seen: a white horse crossing water, a tree that split and bloomed again. These were not just dreams, they were omens, guides, whispers from the gods of what was to come. Egypt, too, held dreams in high regard. The pharaohs had dream books, long rolls of papyrus filled with symbols and meanings. Dreams were doorways to the gods, to the afterlife, to hidden truths. Temples were built where people could sleep in sacred spaces, hoping to receive visions, healing, or prophecy from the divine. The Greeks called dreams oniromancy and practiced it with reverence and method. Aristotle believed dreams reflected health. Hippocrates thought they could diagnose illness, and the philosopher Artemidorus wrote vast works cataloging dreams and their meanings. A snake meant rebirth, a ship meant journey, a fall meant a warning. Every image a riddle, every riddle a clue. Romans adopted these beliefs and added their own. Seneca spoke of dreams as reflections of the soul. Cicero wondered if the mind might fly while the body lay still. Even emperors turned to dream. Interpreters, before making decisions, entire lives shifted based on what was seen in the quiet of night. In the Middle East, dreams were viewed as sacred channels in Islamic tradition. True dreams are seen as a fragment of prophecy, 1 part in 46 of Revelation. The Prophet Muhammad himself was said to have received guidance through dreams in many. Scholars have preserved the tradition of interpreting dreams through both spiritual and psychological lenses. In the East, too, dreams were honored. The Chinese tradition of dream interpretation goes back over 2,000 years. Dreams could signal harmony or imbalance in the body and the household. Or in the land, Confucian scholars recorded dreams that foretold war or peace or the birth of great minds, and in Taoist thought the dreamer moved freely between realms, touching truth without words. Among indigenous peoples of the Americas, dreams were essential for spiritual growth and identity visions. During sleep were often seen as rites of passage, the appearance of an animal, a lost ancestor, a mountain in fire. These were seen not as strange, but as significant markings on the path of life and soul. In medieval Europe, dreams were tangled in faith and fear. Some believed they came from angels, others from demons. Dreams could be temptations or warnings. Dreams could show heaven or hint at sin.
Ow.
People prayed for peaceful dreams and feared the ones that lingered at dawn. And in every culture, there were dreamers, the poets and seers, the wise ones who paid close attention to what the night revealed. Because dreams are not always clear, but they are always honest. They reflect the fears we hide, the hopes we speak the questions we carry when we think we've stopped asking. Today, dreams are studied with science, sleep labs, and EEG's charts of REM cycles and brain waves, yet the mystery remains. Why do we dream of the sea when we live far from it? Why do we see people we never met? Why do some dreams echo across years while others vanish by breakfast? Perhaps dreams are memory arranging itself. Perhaps they are the mind. Its way of healing or rehearsing or remembering something we never learned while awake. Or perhaps, as the ancients believed, they are glimpses beyond. The veil small gifts wrapped in fog, just waiting for us to sit quietly and unfold them. Tonight, as you drift toward your own dreams, know that you are stepping into a story unique and universal, both a mirror and a map take. Your time, let the images come gently. Let your soul wander where it needs, and trust that in the morning, what matters will remain.
Sleep is not one thing, not one shape, not one rhythm. It bends and folds itself into the lives we live, the places we grow, the customs we keep. It changes with seasons, with climate, with community. Some sleep beneath stars, others beneath earth, some on mats, some in hammocks, some curled like leaves, some stretched like branches, each form a reflection of life itself. In Japan, there is the quiet art of inamuri, to be present while sleeping, a cultural nod to the balance of rest and duty. One might nap, sitting up on a train or in a meeting, eyes closed, body still, a brief surrender, not of attention, but of tension, a rest without absence, seen not as laziness, but as effort well spent. In Spain, the siesta is more than legend. It is a practice born from sun and meal, a moment in the afternoon when time itself softens the world, slows, shudders. Close meals linger, and people pause for sleep or silence or thought. Though modern life has trimmed the tradition, its spirit remains in rural towns and quiet homes. In Scandinavian countries, rest is found not just indoors, but outdoors. Infants sleep bundled in prams, beneath the open sky, even in winter. Cool air, clean breath dreams under clouds or snowflakes, believed to strengthen the child and soothe the soul, a trust in nature and its quiet wisdom. In parts of West Africa, sleep is communal mats, spread beneath the stars, families lying side by side, breathing in rhythm, stories shared before sleep, laughter lingering until dreams arrive. This closeness, a form of protection, of comfort, of memory, passed down through generations, like lullabies made of voices. Among the Himba people of Namibia, sleep comes in segments not bound to fixed hours. Night falls and people rest. But if one wakes, they may sit by the fire, speak to others, reflect on dreams, and return to sleep again. No guilt, no pressure, just a natural rhythm, like waves on the sand, rising and falling with ease. In northern India and rural Pakistan, charpoys stretch across courtyards, wooden frames woven with rope, the breeze moving through the weave. People nap under shade trees, tea boiling nearby. Sleep here is light and free, often shared with relatives or neighbors. A pause that fits the flow of the day, not an interruption, but a harmony. In the bustling cities of South Korea, sleep is caught in moments. Students rest at library tables, workers nap at desks. Sleep cafes offer spaces to close one's eyes, just for a while, for in a world of endless motion, rest has become a kind of protest, a quiet reclaiming of self in the heart of noise. In the Pacific Islands, hammocks sway gently tied between palms, children rocked by wind, the ocean singing a lullaby. Sleep follows. No rule here, it comes when it comes, and leaves when it must, embraced without question, a rhythm woven into sun and tide and salt air. In the Arctic, where darkness or daylight can stretch for weeks, people adapt with care, sometimes sleeping in shifts, sometimes building routines against the pull of endless light or night here. Sleep is shaped by survival, by balance, by a wisdom older than clocks and deeper than calendars. And still, across the world, in cities and farms, in deserts and jungles, in towers and tents, people rest in the ways that make sense to them, in beds of silk or floors of earth. In solitude or company, in quiet or in song, what unites us is not how we sleep, but that we all must sleep in one way or another. That we all close our eyes and drift away from the world for a little while. So tonight, let your own way of sleeping feel sacred, and enough weather curled in soft blankets or stretched upon a mat, whether you sleep in silence or to the hum of the city. Your sleep belongs to you, shaped by your life, your story, your breath. Sleep is not only human, it is woven through the animal world, a thread that runs through feathers, fur fins, and scales. Each creature has found its own way to rest, some in stillness, some in motion, some in the deepest dark, some in the shimmering light of the open sky. Sleep is a shared language, spoken in many forms, and every animal sings its own verse of the lullaby of life. Birds sleep perched on branches, their feet locked by tendons, so they do not fall. Some tuck their heads under their wings. Others drift mid-flight, like the alpine swift soaring for days, with half brain asleep, while the other watches the wind, a marvel of movement and rest in one breathless ballet. Dolphins and whales sleep with only one hemisphere of the brain at a time. They must remain alert enough to breathe, to rise to the surface, to keep swimming gently through the water. This unihemispheric sleep lets them rest and live at once, floating between wakefulness and dream beneath the waves. Lions sleep up to 20 hours a day, stretched beneath the acacia trees. In golden light, they rest to conserve energy for the chase, for the hunt. They sleep as rulers do not, in weakness, but in certainty, knowing that their place in the world is both fierce and calm. Horses sleep, standing when they must, lying down when they can, their legs locked in place, bodies ready to rise at a whisper of danger, a sleep of vigilance and grace, shaped by millions of years of survival on open plains where watchfulness was life. Bats roost upside down in dark caves, wrapping wings like blankets around their bodies. They rest in colonies, their sleep a suspended quiet like leaves. Not yet fallen, they hang in peace, in perfect stillness, waiting for the night. Otters hold hands as they sleep on the water, their paws entwined to keep from drifting apart. A sleep not just of rest, but of connection. A bond that persists through dreams, through tides, through time itself, a floating cradle shared between souls. Elephants sleep little and rarely lie down. They may doze while standing gently swaying under stars. Some sleep only 2 hours a day. Walking long distances with slow strength, they carry memory and dreams deep in their bones. Sleep for them is rare and powerful, like thunder waiting. Cats curl into themselves, into warmth, into comfort. They find the sunniest spot, the quietest corner, and surrender to it, fully sleeping in cycles, short and deep, sometimes with ears twitching at a distant sound, always ready to wake, always returning to sleep, like breathing in slow motion. Some animals hibernate, a form of sleep that stretches through seasons. Bears in dens, breathing slow, hearts, quiet bodies, heavy with waiting, a sleep that blurs the line between life and pause, between the pulse of now and the promise of spring. Even insects rest. Bees stop moving their antennae, lower their buzzing thoughts. Silenced spiders hang still in webs. Eyes shut to the chaos of the world. Ants slow their work retreat into tunnels and sleep. Without fanfare, 1,000 small silences hidden in the soil. And though we may not sleep like them, we are joined in this need, this rhythm, this nightly retreat into softness, into shelter, into self. Every sleeping creature, every resting wing, every curled paw or drifting fin is a reminder that rest is not lazy. Rest is wisdom, survival, and grace. So tonight, as you find your place in your bed, your branch, your den, your quiet little piece of the earth, remember you too are an animal with needs, with rhythms, with dreams. Let the natural world cradle you as it cradles them and drift into that ancient shared silence of sleep. Night has always been more than the absence of light. It is the shadowed stage, where stories come alive, where fears grow tall and mysteries unfold. When the sun slips away, the mind begins to wander and wonder, to create, to question, to dream, and to fear. In that darkness, ancient people found not just rest, but also monsters and myths, things that watched from the edges and crept from corners and brushed against the dreams of the living. In many cultures, sleep was seen as a doorway, a place where the soul could leave the body and return again. But what if something else came back in its place? The Babylonians feared the Lilu spirits, who wandered the night, whispering to sleeping men and seeking to cause confusion or weakness. Unseen, but deeply felt, like a cold breath over a candle flame. In Slavic folklore, the nightmare was not just a bad dream, but a creature, a dark being, known as the Mara. She would slip through keyholes or cracks and sit on the chest of a sleeping person, stealing breath and weighing the body down, a feeling we now call sleep paralysis, but once explained by presence, by pressure, by dread. The Norse told tales of Draugr, undead beings who rose from their graves at night, often seen by those who slept too close to burial grounds. They were not just haunters, but reminders that sleep was cousin to death, and sometimes not far enough from it. These stories were not meant only to frighten, but to explain the unexplained. A sudden death, a restless sleep, a lingering dream that felt too real. In Japanese Zen monasteries, Zazen meditation gives way to rest, and rest returns to meditation. Monks sleep on tatami mats in shared halls. Every movement mindful, every breath part of the practice. Even dreams are watched as if they too are teachers, floating in and out of the self like autumn leaves across still water. The Egyptian hermits, known as desert fathers, withdrew from cities into the wilderness, not to escape sleep, but to meet it in stillness. They slept little and lightly, believing dreams could offer distraction or divine insight, either gift or temptation. They watched their rest the way one watches the horizon for signs of coming weather, with respect and attention. In medieval Europe, cloistered nuns would rise at midnight to pray, then return to sleep in short spells, the rhythm of worship and rest weaving together. Like thread through fabric, they believed that even in sleep they were joined with God. Their dreams a canvas on which grace might appear, painted softly in the colors of peace. In remote Himalayan caves, yogis would sleep seated, cross-legged, in deep meditation bodies. Barely moving hearts, slowed minds, at rest and awake, all at once, seeking not escape, but union with the infinite, their breath and the mountain's breath, becoming the same long, silent exhale into the universe. In rural China, Taoist sages retreated to misty hills, sleeping near waterfalls or beneath ancient trees, believing that the key of nature would enter their bodies as they rested, that dreams were not illusions, but rivers flowing from the source of life, and that sleep was not a break from the journey, but part of the path. Even now, across the world, there are sacred guest houses, temples, and shrines where pilgrims are invited to sleep, not just to rest weary limbs, but to listen to the hush within their own soul, to feel the hush of the stones, the wood, the wind, as if the world itself is pausing for a dream. So tonight, as you close your eyes, imagine your bed as a sacred space, no less holy than a mountaintop or a desert cave. Let your room be your temple, your blanket, a robe, your pillow, a place of offering, and let sleep come to you, not as escape, but as arrival, as silence made real, as peace in every breath. There have always been places where sleep is more than rest, where it is a ritual, a devotion, a sacred act shaped by stone and silence, by incense and intention, where people come not just to escape the day, but to reach something deeper, something stiller, something eternal. In monasteries and mountain caves, in temple courtyards and desert tents, sleep has become a holy passage, a gentle surrender to the divine. High in the Himalayas, monks sleep wrapped in saffron robes, their cells small and bare, save for a mat, a bowl, a candle flame. Here, sleep is a companion, not a thief. It is prepared for like prayer, entered with awareness, woken from with reverence. They lie down after chanting, not to lose time, but to join it, to become part of the stillness that surrounds the mountain-like air. In ancient Greece, pilgrims traveled to the temple of Asclepius, god of healing, not for medicine, but for dreams. They bathed, fasted, and lay down in abaton chambers, stone rooms built for sacred sleep. There they hoped the god would visit them in slumber, offering visions, cures, wisdom through symbols and story waking. Not just healed, but transformed by what they had seen in the veiled world behind their eyes. In the deserts of North Africa, Bedouins sleep under endless skies, their tents shaped by wind and woven by hand-soft sand beneath them, cool air above sleep. Here is a meeting with the stars, the breath of the earth in rhythm with one. Own the night, a sacred silence, broken only by distant animals or whispered prayers. In Japanese Zen monasteries, Zazen meditation gives way to rest, and rest returns to meditation. Monks sleep on tatami mats in shared halls. Every movement mindful, every breath part of the practice. Even dreams are watched as if they too are teachers, floating in and out of the self like autumn leaves across still water. The Egyptian hermits, known as desert fathers, withdrew from cities into the wilderness, not to escape sleep, but to meet it in stillness. They slept little and lightly, believing dreams could offer distraction or divine insight, either gift or temptation. They watched their rest the way one watches the horizon for signs of coming weather, with respect and attention. In medieval Europe, cloistered nuns would rise at midnight to pray, then return to sleep in short spells, the rhythm of worship and rest weaving together. Like thread through fabric, they believed that even in sleep they were joined with God. Their dreams, a canvas on which grace might appear painted softly in the colors of peace. In remote Himalayan caves, yogis would sleep seated, cross-legged, in deep meditation bodies. Barely moving hearts, slowed minds, at rest and awake, all at once, seeking not escape, but union with the infinite, their breath and the mountain's breath, becoming the same long, silent exhale into the universe. In rural China, Taoist sages retreated to misty hills, sleeping near waterfalls or beneath ancient trees, believing that the key of nature would enter their bodies as they rested, that dreams were not illusions, but rivers flowing from the source of life, and that sleep was not a break from the journey, but part of the path. Even now, across the world, there are sacred guest houses, temples, and shrines where pilgrims are invited to sleep, not just to rest weary limbs, but to listen to the hush within their own soul, to feel the hush of the stones, the wood, the wind, as if the world itself is pausing for a dream. So tonight, as you close your eyes, imagine your bed as a sacred space, no less holy than a mountaintop or a desert cave. Let your room be your temple, your blanket a robe, your pillow a place of offering, and let sleep come to you, not as escape, but as arrival, as silence made real, as peace in every breath. All around the world, long before clocks and nightlights and cribs, there were lullabies, soft, simple songs, sung in low voices, carried through the hush of twilight by mothers and fathers, by siblings and grandmothers, songs that wrapped around a child, like warmth, like arms, like blankets made of sound. Every culture has them, every voice has known them, every dream has been shaped by a melody that begins with love and ends in silence. In the stillness of the Scottish Highlands, a mother might hum a Gaelic tune, her child swaddled in wool, the wind rattling the thatch, above her voice rising and falling like the hills, themselves songs of sheep and stars and long-lost lands, sung to lull not only the baby, but the home itself into calm. In Japan, lullabies like Komori Yuta float gently through bamboo houses, words of comfort and longing, telling of sleep and small chores of duty and devotion, often sung by nursemaids as they rocked a cradle. The song both a promise and a prayer that dreams would be kind and morning gentle. In Nigeria, rhythmic lullabies blend with the pulse of drums and the hush of night winds, soothing words layered over complex melodies, sung by women in compounds where family and sleep and music have always been braided together, stories woven into sound telling of moonlight, of ancestors, of peace. In the Andes of Peru, Quechua, mothers sing to their children in a language that predates conquest, wrapping them in songs as old as the mountains, tunes that echo the rhythm of footsteps along rocky trails, the sound of alpacas, breathing the lull of the river beside which they sleep. In Eastern Europe, the cradle songs often hold both love and sorrow minor keys, drifting through candlelit rooms, whispering of wolves outside and angels inside. Lullabies are not always cheerful, but always meant to soothe, even when they carry warnings, even when they speak of loss. They protect the child with truth and tune. Among Native American tribes, lullabies carry the stories of the land, the rhythm of birds and buffalo and rain. Songs are sung in tipis and longhouses under pine boughs and starlit skies, with voices that seem to blend with the earth, itself each note a thread tying the newborn to generations before. In India, mothers sing in many languages: Hindi, Tamil, Bengali, Marathi, soft melodies, with words that speak of gods and moons, of little elephants and sleepy suns. The songs change from place to place, but the feeling remains a soothing hush, a vibration in the bones that quiets both child and mother. In the villages of Italy, the Nina Nena carries a lilting melody with simple refrains, the child in its cradle rocked in time with a song that speaks of sleep and sweetness. Sometimes sorrow too, because lullabies do not lie. They are not all sunshine. They are real, and in their realness is their power. Even in cities now, lit with neon and pulsing with traffic, hum a tune remembered from long ago or made up on the spot. The magic is not in perfection, but in presence, in the act of singing, in the gift of sound made soft. And though many of us may not remember the lullabies sung to us, their effect remains the way we calm when someone hums the way. A certain melody can bring tears or peace the way music lives in the body long after words are forgotten. It is proof that long before we understood what love was, we heard it and it sang us to sleep. So tonight, imagine the lullaby meant for you, sung by someone who wished you peace, someone who held you and wanted only rest for your heart. Imagine that song now humming in your ears, warm and slow and true. Let it carry you, let it cradle you, let it be your final thought before you fall.